I am Cori Wamsley. I'm the CEO of Aurora Corialis Publishing. I am a writing coach and a book editor, and I work with people who have transformational stories that they want to share. That's basically a story that has happened in your life, whether it's in your business or in your personal life, and it's something that you've overcome, something usually a big challenge that you've overcome that you want to share the story with others so they can overcome that challenge a lot faster, a lot easier. Some of the people I work with talk about leadership, they talk about kindness, they talk about gut health and overcoming mindset issues. So it's a variety of different things that all work together to help people become their best selves. I also work with children's authors, and some of the children's books we publish are ones that have a big message because as a mother myself, I have two little ones. They are right now they're 7 and 9. I've read a lot of children's books, and I want them to get books that are teaching them big things about the world and about themselves, because they're going to be the next generation of leaders. And one of my big goals in my life is to raise leaders, to raise empowered women who will grow up and be good people, be kind humans, and help us progress further as humanity. That's a long answer for what I do, but that is what I do in a nutshell. My book is Braving the Shore, and it is about two sisters who get back together for their birthday, and they're in an accident immediately, and this totally upends their worlds. So the one sister, Chelsea, has to navigate memory loss and trying to figure out where she was in her life. She has no idea. She doesn't remember anything from before the accident except maybe a few little blips. So you get to see some of that stuff coming back to her and how she figures out whether she wants to remain on the path she was on or if she wants to change things up completely and consider that her memory loss is really an opportunity for a blank slate. So this is kind of a funny thing. This is actually my 9th book, and I've written books before that were just inspired by little blips here and there, things that I thought were intriguing, and I was just really driven to write a book. This came as kind of the opposite of that. So I was on vacation and I kept thinking about a show that I'd watched and thinking about the car accident in that show and how that set off a series of events that led to people taking advantage of something that happened there and actually coming out monetarily much better. Now, of course, at the end of the show, they got arrested because what they did was illegal. But what I was intrigued by was the process that happened during this show and how you could actually have that happen to decent people and have them be completely innocent of what was going on. So I kept playing with that idea. Well, what would the characters have to look like? What would have to happen? How would we be able to make this work? And I knew kind of this beginning point and this end point. So I had to actually sit down and figure out what kind of people this would happen to, what they would look like, what their relationship is, what their backstories are. That's kind of what inspired the story. And then I worked backwards from this end point where I knew that I wanted the characters to end up and work backwards to that beginning point of the car accident. So that was how I started mapping out the book in my head. And once I was kind of thinking about this, it was really just something I was doing when I was out on walks and, just spinning this idea in my head. I didn't really intend to write a book. It was more something that I was occupying my mind with. And once I had this whole story arc fleshed out, I kind of had to write the book. So I sat down and started working on the outline for that. And that's what inspired the story, was just to have all of that stuff going on and then sit down and start working on the actual book and say, all right, guess I'll have to do this now that I've got it all figured out. Of course, the storyline was more what inspired the characters in this instance, because I was kind of working at it backwards. A lot of my previous books, I actually came up with characters in my head and thought how fun it would be to interact them together, and then took the storyline from there. This was the opposite. So I had the storyline, and then I kind of placed in characters that would fit in the different roles. Now, at this point in my life, I've been an entrepreneur for a little over 6 years. And a lot of that is learning about your personality, digging deep into who you are, and figuring out what makes you tick, what makes you do certain things, how do you react to things, where are your feelings coming from, and where are your fears coming from. And those are things that I used to inspire the actual development of each of the characters. Nobody does things just because they do things. It all comes from a feeling, and a lot of it is fear or love. So I looked at what would cause a character to have a certain behavior. Okay, well, what fear did that stem from? How are they protecting themselves? What are they trying to keep from getting out to the world? What are they keeping themselves from healing? And that was really the biggest impact on my characters was, we get hurt all the time, right? Whether it's a little hurt or a big hurt. A simple breakup with a boyfriend in high school can trigger all kinds of crazy stuff later in your life if you let it do that. Part of it's awareness of your feelings. So since my characters had some awareness of their feelings, not a ton, but some, they were able to kind of navigate that stuff in the book. And that's part of where the plot came from, was them taking these older fears and navigating them in a new storyline. You have to imagine what you would be like if all of a sudden you had a blank slate, but you still had these fears buried deep. So all this stuff happened to you, but you can't actually call up the memories. So instead of being able to say, oh, wow, I got sick when I was little, so now I have this going on, you're going, I have this going on and I don't even know where it came from. So it was very interesting to explore that sort of thing, especially with Chelsea, who's navigating memory loss. What is there not to love about writing? When I get to write a story, it's so interesting to me because I get to explore things that aren't going on in my personal life. I get to explore things that, may never even happen in my purview. They might not happen to my friends or anything. I love taking, conversely, I love taking something that has happened to somebody and twisting it around and making it into part of the story and, seeing how the characters react to that specific thing. That's always been fun for me. And the way I write, a lot of it is almost like there's a movie playing in my head and I'm just describing it. So it's not as much force as it is flow for me. A lot of it is just a natural thing. Like I just see it in my head and I just say, okay, this is what's going on. Once I have that outline and the characters kind of created, that's when I just let my imagination run wild. And that's when it comes out on paper. That is one of my favorite things, just being able to be creative and let myself go. I think that's when I am definitely living my best life, when I can just open up and relax and create. Being a writing coach and book editor, I have lots of advice for anybody who wants to write a book. Some of the first things that I like to tell people are to consider your audience and your purpose. You can't sit down and write a book that actually has a point and gets anywhere and impacts people the way that you want to if you don't know who it is you want to impact. And, with fiction, it's, I think, a little bit easier because usually you have a genre that you're working with. So whether it's romance or mystery or literary fiction, sci-fi, whatever it is, you have a genre. So you're used to that genre and the constructs of that genre. You're used to what you will be working within. If you're doing nonfiction, that's a little bit different because usually you're looking at what you feel like should be a broader audience, because a lot of times the story isn't coming from just a desire to tell a story for kids or for adults, or, whatever it is, your genre. It's coming from a drive to write a book and share your story to impact people. Most of the people I work with are nonfiction, so we look at who is your audience. And it's not just like what magazines do they read and what toothpaste do they use. It's more like what challenges do they need to overcome? Because that group of people overcoming that specific challenge can look like a lot of different things. It can look like people of all different ages, races, different genders, all of that kind of stuff. So it's really important to sit down and say, what is binding all of these type of people together? And it's always a common challenge. And then from there, looking at what kind of challenges are like some challenges. So if your big challenge is how to get your family out the door in the morning, without screaming at each other. All right, well, what kind of challenges are we looking at underneath that? We're looking at challenges with, relationship with your spouse. It could be challenges with the relationship with your children, and that can be split into different ages. You could be looking at challenges with organization, challenges with feeling rushed. There are lots of different challenges that would fall under whatever category you're looking at. So that's always important to think about. And then, of course, your purpose. What is the purpose of this book? With fiction, you're looking a lot of times at entertaining people. Okay, that makes sense. With nonfiction, it could be entertainment if you're doing more of a memoir, but chances are you have a bigger purpose than that. You probably, you want people to be inspired by your story. You want to empower people. You want to help them overcome a challenge, which is what binds them all together. So those are always things that I like to suggest you look at first. This is going to be a lot bigger of an answer than just one piece of advice because I have so much. And I know something that people like to say too is when you want to write a book, just sit down and write. That's part of it. Sitting down and writing is something that gets you used to writing. And it's also something that will get you used to, just opening up and relaxing into the writing piece. A lot of people are very judgmental when we write because it's not just speaking. I'm just sitting here talking, and I'm not really judging what I'm saying as it's coming out of my mouth. But as I'm typing things, I'm used to that. That's what I've always done, but most people aren't as used to just typing things, and it stays in front of you after you've typed it. My words in the air are not in front of me. I can't see what I said 2 seconds ago. I can definitely see what I typed 2 seconds ago, though. So people will find themselves typing and then going back and judging what they've written, editing as they go, or something like that. Don't do that. Sitting down and writing is a great way to get started and to help you move through the process of judging yourself as you're writing. But it's not going to get you to the end product of a book very fast. The best thing you can do is plan that book. So once you get used to the writing process and you're used to seeing your words in front of you and not judging them, you can actually sit down and map out your book. How do you do that? You have to know what your story arc is. You have to understand how you're getting from point A to point B, and you have to see all the points in between. The way I do that is to start out very small with like a full paragraph about the book, and then I move on and break that into chapters. And then I flesh out each chapter. I might say chapter 1, this is what's going to happen. Chapter 2, this is what's going to happen. Chapter 3, this is what's going to happen. So creating that outline is going to make it so much easier, because if you're looking at, let's say you've written 50 pages of your book, you might not remember what you said at the beginning and how that's going to impact the end. Having that outline done ahead of time is going to help you be able to see what's going on without having this gigantic book. So it's kind of like looking at a map instead of standing on, in your driveway and looking out and going, okay, I can't see my way to the beach. It makes it a lot easier. And then when you sit down at your desk, you aren't just staring at a blank page, wondering what the heck you're supposed to write. Braving the Shore is on Amazon, and it's also on barnesandnoble.com. You could also go into any bookstore and ask them to order the book, and it's available. You can get the book online either as a paperback or as an ebook.